But the Israeli government is saying it every single day, that what they want is an Israeli state from the river to the sea. So that really is Jordan's worry. And Jordan is equally concerned that what is happening today, not in the future in the West Bank, might be a prelude to a mass transfer of Palestinians into Jordan.
Well, it's my great pleasure to be talking to Marwan Muasher, who has been an extremely significant figure in the Arab Peace Initiative and the peace process. He was Jordan's first ambassador to Israel. His views are particularly significant because he has devoted a career to a peace process that has been really torn up and thrown in everyone's faces. And he has particular insights into the relationship, the fraught relationship between Israel and all its neighbours, but particularly Jordan. Mr. Muasher, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
I would like to sort of start with sort of series of general questions, really. Why do you think Arab regimes fail to make any impact to stop the war in Gaza, and what could they have done differently?
I think it's fair to say that there is no Arab world anymore, David. There is no unified position on just about anything, but particularly on the peace process. The last time the Arab states got together and had a unified position was through the Arab Peace Initiative, which you mentioned. That was 22 years ago in 2002. Today, the answer of what we should do depends on which Arab state you ask. And therefore, for all practical purposes, I do not think that one can count on Arab states doing much. I just published an article in Foreign Affairs suggested what they could do if there was a unified Arab position. And in the article, I've argued that we need to abandon the two-state solution because practically that is not going to take place, and replace it with a rights-based approach in which the departure point should be equal rights between Israelis and Palestinians. If we can arrive at such a departure point, and of course this is a big if, then one can start talking about what shape of a solution we can arrive at. But any solution that does not involve equal rights is not going to be sustainable, in my view.
There is obviously a big difference, for instance, speaking specifically about Jordan and Jordan's reaction to the horrific events of the last year, which is puzzling to outsiders like me. You have the private comments that King Abdullah made to the Americans, as recorded by Bob Woodward, for instance. If we are to believe this is true, I have no reason to believe it isn't, that in his book, Woodward claims that when Blinkens met King Abdullah in Amman, just a few days after the Hamas attack, the king told him, "We told Israel not to do this. We told them not to trust Hamas. Hamas is a Muslim Brotherhood. Israel must defeat Hamas. We will not say this publicly, but we support the defeat of Hamas." Now, that's in closed doors. This contrasts quite vividly to the position of Ayman Safadi, for instance, who has said many things, but he's been outspoken and said that ethnic cleansing was taking place in Gaza and had to stop. So between those two poles, the secret whispered position and the public position, what is the real position of Jordan on Gaza?
I think the real position has been declared many times, David, by the king himself, including in front of the platform of the United Nations. The king has said that what Israel is doing is genocide. The Queen has said that Israel is an apartheid state. And of course, the government and Ayman Safadi, the foreign minister, has said Israel is engaged in ethnic cleansing. This position has been repeated many times throughout the last year. And so I truly take very serious doubts about what Bob Woodward said, let's also not forget that the king did not talk directly to Bob Woodward. He was just quoting someone else telling him this. So I truly take this with a grain of salt. I think that official Jordan today, not just public opinion, is not just critical of Israel, but is very weary of Israel's real objectives behind the war on Gaza. And it is very worried not just about the Palestinians, but about Jordanian interests as well. So I really doubt that what has been reported is true.
Going on about what the impact of, for instance, ethnic cleansing from the West Bank would be to Jordan, can you just spell it out for us? And could you spell out how Jordan could react to it? Because one of the more interesting things about what's been taking place, it has been the strength of opinion amongst the East Bankers in Jordan, not simply the Palestinian diaspora.
Well, Jordan has always been concerned that Israel's aim ultimately is to have mass transfer of Palestinians outside Palestinian territories. And whereas that position has been the position of fringe groups in Israel 30 or 40 years ago, groups that were outside the mainstream of Israeli politics, today they are part and parcel of the Israeli government. When Palestinians talk about the slogan "from the river to the sea," people get really agitated around the world. But the Israeli government is saying it every single day, that what they want is an Israeli state from the river to the sea. So that really is Jordan's worry. What we have seen in Gaza is an example not just of killing Palestinians, but of making Gaza uninhabitable and trying to effect a mass transfer of Palestinians into Egypt. Nothing is standing in Gaza, not the water network or the electricity network or the school system, or nothing is standing. And Jordan is equally concerned that what is happening today, not in the future in the West Bank, might be a prelude to a mass transfer of Palestinians into Jordan. The settlers, with the support of the Israeli army, are engaged in ethnic cleansing activities in Area C in the West Bank. This is 60% of the West Bank, trying to drive them out of where they live and trying to have them be concentrated in the major urban centers, ahead, I think, of what probably might be an annexation of Area C to start with. So this is of real concern to Jordan, and Jordan has been very vocal in talking to the international community about such a disastrous scenario.
What could practically Jordan do about it, or do to stop it? I mean, what levers does Jordan have?
Jordan is not, militarily, of course, able to stop it, maybe. So what Jordan has done so far is to raise awareness about the problem to the international community so that this is on the radar screen. And I think we have successfully done that, so that today the Americans, the European Union, the international community at large is actually concerned and talking publicly about mass transfer in a way that they have not done so in the past. Jordan does not want to be faced with a scenario in which a large number of Palestinians are on its borders, because, as you said, then it is going to be very difficult of what to do in such a case.
Are there tensions between the popular mood in Jordan and the official stand of Jordan, or does one reflect the other?
To be fair, the official stand as of October 7 has been very close to the public position. The public position today in Jordan is appreciative of the government and the king's stand vis-a-vis Israel. But beyond that, David, public opinion today, not just in Jordan, but across the Arab world, but let me maybe focus on Jordan, has been very radicalized by October 7. Today, no one wants to talk peace. Today, a majority of people now think that the only way to end the occupation is through armed resistance. And that has never been the case, even among Palestinians. 65% today of Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza, in a poll done after October 7, think that the only way to end the occupation is through armed resistance. So we are, and of course, more than 80% of Israelis do not want a two-state solution. In fact, Netanyahu has called a two-state solution a reward for terrorism. So we are faced today with a general mood among both communities that is making peace very, very difficult to achieve. Without October 7, it was difficult to achieve. After October 7, the public mood is extremely radicalized.
How critical are you of Blinken's diplomacy throughout since the Hamas attack?
Secretary Blinken has raised expectations to get a ceasefire going first between Palestinians and Israelis, then between Hezbollah, Lebanon, and Israel, and he has not delivered on these. He has come 11 times to the region, and every single time has promised that the gap is too close. But anybody who lives in the region will tell you that a ceasefire is just not possible, because the Israeli position is so far off from the Palestinian one that a ceasefire just cannot come about. Israel wants basically Hamas to release all the hostages and then to go after Hamas and kill them after they do that. Whereas Hamas, of course, says, yes, we will release all the hostages, but in return for a permanent ceasefire, not a temporary one. The difference between the two positions is extremely wide. And, to be fair, not many people today believe what the secretary says after 11 trips to the Middle East.
And of course, there is not just the Israeli position, but there's Netanyahu's personal interest in keeping the war going.
Netanyahu's, it is clear, I think, and I'm talking to you from Washington, and I can tell you that even in Washington it is clear that Netanyahu's objective is to prolong the war as long as he can. He does not care about the hostages. He is riding high in the polls, particularly after his incursion into Lebanon. He has regained everything that he has lost in terms of his standing in the public eye. He does not want to give any gift to Kamala Harris because he, would prefer Trump to win. So for all these reasons, it is becoming very, very clear that Netanyahu's objective is to prolong the war as much as possible, and by doing so also maybe protect himself from the corruption charges he is facing in Israel.
So Trump has now won. Is this a vindication of Netanyahu's strategy, and what do you expect to happen now in Israel and also in the Middle East?
We have seen what President Trump's ideas about solving the conflict are. He has put forward in the past what he called the deal of the century, a deal in which all of the Jordan Valley, all of settlement land, all of East Jerusalem would go immediately to the Israelis without any negotiations. And what is left of the West Bank, 60 to 70%, is to be negotiated with Israel, creating at best a stump of a state surrounded by all sides by Israel. It's another Bandustan that is going to basically kill a two-state solution and result in a Palestinian population totally surrounded by Israel, much like what we see today in Gaza. And so he has not said anything to suggest that he is going to abandon this plan. And therefore, the region is very worried about what Trump might do.
Did you believe, for instance, his hints to Yemenis and other people in the run-up to the election that his first his first priority would be to stop wars?
Trump has said this repeatedly, but he has not given any indication of how he intends to do that. And therefore, without a credible plan to tell us how he would stop the war, I would take all of this with a grain of salt.
To what do you attribute the total refusal to apply real pressure, even on a prime minister that they don't like in America? Why is it so impossible to restrict or even threaten to restrict arms supplies? Reagan did it. Reagan threatened it over the siege of the bombardment of South Beirut, because it was looking bad on nightly television. Other Republicans have done it. H.W. Bush did it at one point. Why is it so impossible for an American president to say, we are not giving you the bombs for this?
I think the era where Israel was criticized by previous US presidents to the point that serious pressure was applied is, at least in the short term, over. A lot of people would say that the US foreign policy towards Israel in Biden's time was a direct result of Biden's own thinking about the process rather than the administration's thinking. Having said that, David, I'm also optimistic about the future because the Democratic Party in the United States is undergoing major changes. The youthful wing of the Democratic Party is more ready to criticize Israel in an unprecedented way. 140 members from the Democratic Party boycotted Netanyahu's speech in front of Congress. That is unprecedented. That has never happened in the past. And I think that in a generation's time, we might see a Democratic Party whose views on the Middle East are going to be dramatically different from today. That time is not yet there. And whereas, like I said, there's a sizable number of members of Congress ready to criticize Israel, it is not yet up to a critical mass that would affect a change in policy, but it is coming.
In terms of the sort of regional implications of the continuation of the war, not just in Gaza, but in Lebanon, pessimistically in the short term, you could see if the war is not stopped now, you could see the war spreading into the Bekaa Valley and possibly also into Syria. This is a regional conflagration. Are you not worried that if nothing happens, i.e. no serious attempt is made to limit the scope of the fighting, that we're going to slip into a regional war by default?
Well, the worry is always there, and a regional war is going to be disastrous to everyone. America has applied real pressure on Iran and Israel not to escalate into a regional war, in a way that it has not done so with regard to Gaza, for example. And so far, what we have seen, both from Hezbollah and from Iran, and maybe in a way from Israel also, is sort of a calculated, limited response against the other. I still hope that this means that there is enough pressure against a regional war that might stop it. But if it does escalate into one, it's going to be disastrous on everyone.
How do you see, because in a sense, both Yahya Sinwar and Netanyahu said after the October 7th attack that this would reshape the Middle East. But I'm thinking particularly of Netanyahu's now plans to reshape the Middle East. What do you think he meant? And do you think that we're actually seeing that reshaping now? What does the structure of the region now feel like? Or is it too early to say?
First, David, this kind of talk is not new. I still remember 30 years ago when Shimon Peres also talked about a new Middle East. A Middle East that basically where people and countries cooperate amongst each other, where peace prevails. Netanyahu is talking also about a new Middle East in which Arab states and Arab forces are going to acquiesce to the Israeli military machine. That is not going to happen. That is wishful thinking that has been proven wrong during the last 30 years. But more than that, the region is being reshaped, but it is being reshaped in exactly the opposite direction than Netanyahu talks about. Today, as I already stated, Arab public opinion is so radical that nobody wants to talk about any peace process, let alone cooperation with Israel. And Israeli public opinion is equally radicalized. The Knesset 3 months ago passed a law objecting to a two-state solution that was approved by every single Jewish Israeli political force. So this is the Middle East that is emerging from Netanyahu's designs without addressing the core issue, which is the occupation and the need to end that occupation. There is going to be no practical way that a Middle East that is peaceful and prosperous and cooperative is going to emerge.
What do you think is happening in Syria in particular? Is it true that Jordan and the UAE are lobbying Assad to break away from Iran's influence?
I have no information about this, David, but I do know that there were many attempts in the past by Arab countries to try to lure Assad away from Iran.
They have not worked, and they have not worked for a reason, which is that the the Assad regime depends on Iran, depends on Hezbollah to sustain itself, and as such, it is not going to acquiesce to any requests to get itself off Iranian influence. It is conspicuous that Assad has not said basically anything in the last year about Gaza, about Lebanon, even about Israeli planes, violating Syria's space and bombing facilities and people. He has chosen not to say anything. But in particular, I think Assad is not interested in a regional war that would weaken Hezbollah or would weaken his own position in Syria as a result.
Do you think, as a result of this, we've talked about the huge support for armed resistance and presumably for Hamas as well. Do you think Israel is losing strategically, as people like, well, commentators like me have said? But do you think that is the case?
I think the Israeli project is dying. The Zionist project of the late 19th century that promised Jews around the world
a democratic, secular, Jewish state in historic Palestine, and one that would live in peace, is dying. Today, Israel is not Jewish. A majority of people living within its control are Arabs. Today, Israel is increasingly not democratic. Even if you take the Arabs off the equation, just inside Jewish Israel, there's a huge debate going on about democracy, and we have seen the weekly protests a year before October 7 on this. Today, Israel is not increasingly not secular. The fringe groups that were, outside the Israeli political system 30, 40 years ago are today part and parcel of government. The secular right and the religious right are partners today, and they've never been such in the past. And of course, this state is not living in peace. So What is left of the Zionist project? The Zionist project cannot determine the future of Israel, in my view. What can determine a future that is peaceful is to end the occupation. And as long as that fact is ignored, I'm afraid that the conflict will go on for a very long time. There is today no political force in the international community, certainly not in the United States, that is ready, willing, to put on the table a political initiative to end the occupation. If that does not happen, I see no way that the conflict will end.
Do you think, for instance, that the Arab countries that had a treaty with Israel should tear them up? Should Wadi Araba be rescinded?
I don't think that is on the table, frankly, David. Rescinding the Wadi Araba agreement is going to create huge political problems for Jordan that I don't think Jordan is ready to face. But between rescinding the treaty and between a very warm peace with Israel, there are many, many shades of gray. I do not expect that the relationship between Jordan and Israel will continue to be the same after October 7 as the one before. Talk about a warm peace, talk about, economic agreements, cooperation on water and energy and the like, are just simply out of touch with reality today. And today, official Jordan, not just public Jordan, official Jordan is questioning what the treaty has done for Jordan. When we signed a peace treaty 30 years ago, the reasoning was that Jordanian borders would be protected. The notion that Jordan is Palestine would be buried. Today, this justification is very weak. And it is becoming clear to official Jordan that Israel has designs not just on the Palestinians, but on Jordanians as well. Given that, it is very, very difficult, if not impossible, to maintain the same relationship short of rescinding the treaty.
I mean, there were indications that in some of their maps that they were using in the UN, and Netanyahu, he was using the same color with Jordan as with Gaza, i.e. it's the old thing of Jordan is Palestine.
Absolutely. As I said, this slogan of from the river to the sea and beyond into Jordan is a slogan that is raised now by official Israel. But yet the word does not say anything similar to what they say if Palestinians raise it.
So how do we get, finally, last question, from a situation of this increasing belligerence, this increasing religious Zionism, the idea that somehow Jews are returning to their historic homeland, which stretches all the way to Damascus, Amman, everywhere. How do we get from that position to talking in real terms that you and I would say is our real peace terms about equality of rights from the river to the sea? How does that happen? Does there have to be a massive defeat for Israel? Does there have to be massive bloodshed? What is the process to get from A to B in that sense? Does Israel have to really get a bloody nose from continued fighting, or what's the
The international community needs to acknowledge that the two-state solution is over. Raising this two-state solution slogan without accompanying it with a credible plan to end the occupation has only given Israel time to build more settlements and kill that very solution. So we need to change the mindset and start with, as I said, as the departure point, equal rights. Now, we don't have to work for a one-state solution, David, unlike a two-state solution which needs work. We today are in a one-state reality. It is not a solution. It is, in fact, an apartheid reality. But it is a reality nonetheless. And with the increasing number of Palestinians who today are a majority in areas under Israel's control, 7.5 million Palestinians to maybe 7.2, 7.3 million Israelis. And it is an increasing majority with time. There will come a time when the international community will not accept apartheid indefinitely. That is the hope that I have. That is the trigger that is going to force a solution. Because in 10 or 15 or 20 years' time, both communities will understand that they are not going to drive the other, into the sea. They will have to come to a solution, but that solution is going to be, in my view, a democratic one state. And a democratic one state does not have to mean abandoning the cultural and political identity of either community. We have examples in the world, like the Swiss Federation, like the Belgian Federation, where a federal arrangement can be arrived at that would preserve the political and cultural identity of each group, but have them within an integrative approach rather than a separation approach that no longer works.
Well, thank you very much. Those are excellent answers. Thank you, Mosh.
Thank you, David.
Thank you,
Truly
Marwan.
appreciate
Thank
it.
you.